Hi there. Somebody online asked, how do you make one of these abstract swirly things? And I thought, hey, I think I know how to do that. So I decided to make this short tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to make one of these swirly abstract shapes. I'm going to assume that you know a bit about Blender and how to use it. We won't be doing anything advanced, but I'm assuming that you know how to move things around and move the camera around. I'm using version 3.1, but this will be the same in almost every modern version of Blender. But your interface might look a bit different if you're wondering why it looks strange. So let's dig in and have a look at what we're gonna make. The first thing I like to do is to analyze what it is that we're seeing. We have two versions. We have one on the black, one like this, and we have a white and blue one. Something that is the same for both of these is that I think they have been, it's not just been made with a 3D program, but they have also used Photoshop to do some things here. We can see that on this black one, for example, the sort of glow that you see over here, that has almost certainly been done with Photoshop, because if it was, like, you can do this with masking out emission shaders and stuff, but it's a lot of work, and I don't think that they have done that here. On this one, we can also see that they have moved from a blue to a lighter blue and to a purple. I think they've done this by just masking things out in Photoshop. It's much easier to do that. You can do it in Blender, but it's a bit more work than it's worth. What is it that they have actually done? So the first thing is that they have this big shape. It has been twisted. And you have these scores that run along here, where like it looks like something has been cutting into it. So you have a general shape that has been twisted, and that shape on the sides of it have these scores. So when we build this, we're going to need to have a general shape, and then we're going to make the sides have these kind of these scores on the side here. The second thing that I see is that they have just a couple of colors. So we have the blue here that I believe has been manipulated in Photoshop to become light blue over here and purple over here. And what we see here is that the blue does not really follow the scores. Like, it follows them along, but like it doesn't seem like they have purposefully put the color inside the scores. It seems like when that happens, it's more of a random thing. So that tells us that we don't need to worry about exactness when it comes to this. There is a light back here that have warm yellow light that you can see here and here. But overall, the image is, or the object is lit sort of uniformly, which means that they probably use an HDRI or some other like uniform light. So we're going to do this. We're going to start with making the 3D shape. Then we're going to put some light, just because it's nice to have a bit of light when you start doing the shading. And finally, we're going to do the shading to something that looks sort of like this. It won't look exactly like it, but it will be the right approach. And it will help you sort of figure out how to do something similar, but put your own twist on it. Okay, let's get started. So we're going to take an empty scene and we're going to add a curve. We're going to start with adding a circle. You can do this with a Bezier curve as well, but just for illustration purposes, I'm going to use a circle because it's a bit easier to move things around. And we're going to use this circle to create the base form. And if you remember, the base form is kind of twisted. So we're going to start with twisting this circle up. I'm moving to the side here. And I'm going to start by just moving this up. And hold on, I'm going to remove the images so we don't have to deal with them. And I start with just moving things around like here. And I'm going to go to the front view, and we're going to twist it a bit. We're going to twist that a bit, and twist this, and twist this. Now we're going to go for the top view, and we're going to move these two together a bit, I think. Twist that the other way and scale it up. That might be an interesting shape. Yeah, I think that is enough to get us going. All right, so I go out of edit mode, and there are several ways to do this, and that's the sort of fun part about 3D modeling and 3D design. There's usually like a handful of ways to do it. So the first way that you can do it is by going to the object data properties here. Since it's a Bezier circle, it will look like a little curve. Then you go down to the geometry tab here, scroll down until you get to the depth. So right now there's a 0 depth on this circle, so we're going to add some. And you see that straight away it gets a bit chunky. So this is going to be the basis of what we're going to do here, of the 3D shape. You can change the resolution. Both here, that gives the resolution on the side. You can also change the resolution here, which gives the resolution on the y-axis alongside the curve. I recommend keeping it at the default until you start making the renders. It's much easier to move things around, and it's less effort for the computer to keep up if you're keeping it low. And then just before you do the render, you just crank these up, and it's going to look beautiful. So the first way which we can do this is, so this is round, right? And we didn't want that. We wanted these kind of scores and ridges in it. So the first way we can do that is that we can go to the profile. Right now, it's a round profile around this. So if we click here, poof, and it becomes sort of square. And that is because the profile looks like this right now. If we take this and just start dragging it around, you can see that it starts to have these scores in them. And to make them look sort of like the ones on the pictures, you just need to pull them together like that. This is the easiest way to do it. I don't really recommend doing this because it doesn't give you that much control. So I'm going to make a copy of it and move it over here, and we're going to continue with another method. So for this other method, we're going to add a new circle. I'm just going to move it a bit to the side so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to move to top view here. And what you do is that you click the object here, and you take the this little tool, and you mark this one. So now the sides of this Bezier curve will have whatever form that this one has. This one decides the profile. And we're going to select this, and we're going to call this profile so that we don't forget what we are doing here, because we might end up with a lot of Bezier curves here, Bezier circles. So let's go into edit mode, and let's go into top view, and let's just start moving things around. So first of all, I'm moving things down a bit in size so that we can see things over here. Actually, I'm going to move it a bit closer so we can have it in the same view and see a bit better. Then I'm going to select 2 points, right click and subdivide. So now I can just move this in, and you see that we got this ridge here straight away. And we can do that again, subdivide, and move this one back out. And you can see how we can quite easily start to build these ridges. It's all about just playing around, finding things that look good, and as you will see later, like, don't spend too much time on this because things will change quite a lot. But I'm just adding points here and moving things around just to basically yeah, add a bit of interest to these points here. So now that we have the profile over there and we have the general shape, let's go back and start changing things up. So we're going to start with just scaling things up a bit again. And then we're going to need to add a camera. You want to add the camera quite early so that you are sort of building the scene around the camera view. So here we go and have a look at what we got. Great, and I want to turn it like maybe like that. Let's go in and again rearrange stuff. You see, now everything is sort of joined together, so it becomes now. The next step is to add a bit of light. So we're going to add an area light that we're going to just move up here. Then we're going to add, we're going to use this as a backlight, and we're going to add a fill light over here. And I want to have this a bit in the front like that, and this is going to need to be a bit more in the back. I'm just placing these up here. I'm going to adjust them later on. Then we go into the rendered view here, and we're going to add a HDRI. So an HDRI is basically an image that emits lights. So I'm just adding a general kind of neutral light HDRI that I got from HDRI Heaven. And then we're going to go into the rendering, and we're going to go to film, and we're going to click in the transparent. So when we render this out, the background is transparent, but we still get the light information bouncing off here. And I'm going to change from the render engine Eevee to cycles. So cycles is a physics-based rendering engine, and it gives a bit more interesting light. So with this light, we're going to move it down. We're going to up the and make it much more much stronger, and we're just going to move it around a bit like that. And we're going to take the other fill light, and it can be 10, that's fine. And we're going to reduce the strength of the ambient light so we get something a bit more dramatic. Point that light over here. Maybe we should move it a bit. Yeah, something like that. Let's see where we go here. Yeah, that looks nice and dramatic. Okay, so now it's time to do the shading. Or actually, no, let's actually make things a bit nicer before we go into the shading. So we're gonna go in here and add a modifier. The first modifier that we're gonna add is the smooth modifier. So we're gonna make things a bit more smooth. We're gonna put it to 0.6, something like that, just to smooth out everything. And we're also going to go into this, and you remember I talked about that you can add some resolution. We're going to do that. We're going to double the resolution here. Oh, it's a bit more than double. Let's do 32. Nice and nice number. Right. Do I want? No, I don't want to do that. Let's keep it like this. You can also do some smoothing over here, and we're gonna add that just a bit so it's nice and smooth. We're gonna actually, I'm a bit worried about this bright area over here. I think it's a bit overexposed. So we're gonna reduce the lamp here a bit. Just so we have some information over here. Let's start with that. Do I want to add anything else? Like, you can add a lot of things. You can do a lot of weird stuff, but let's leave it like this. Yeah, let's leave it like this and go into the shading part. So shading. Again, I'm gonna do it from the point of view of the camera, and we're gonna add a new material. So if we remember, the material that we saw, it had blue and white. It was kind of base roughness, so it's not super shiny, but it's not super matte either. It has a bit of shininess. We can actually up the specularity a bit, because that will create a bit of an interesting effect. Specularity is when light sort of follows along here. We can see when I crank it up all the way and crank it down. You see here that like you add a bit of light here because the light sort of follows along the material. And anything else we should do here in the base material? Anisotropic. Maybe later. Maybe later. Oh yeah, we should do this in the rendered view as well, so that we're doing it with the right kind of lighting conditions. So what we should do now is that we should add these stripes around them, and we should add some blue stripes. So to do that, I'm gonna add a texture that have these stripes, and I'm gonna just color them blue. Super easy. So I'm using Node Wrangler, so I'm getting some texture mapping. I'm going to remove the image texture, and I'm going to search for a color ramp. Okay, we're going to use the generated one, and we're going to add a texture. No, sorry, we're not going to use it. We're going to use the UV one. Add a wave texture. I'm going to use the UV coordinates. You see that it's based on the X right now. So it's projecting waves along the X-axis. So we're just going to change that into the Y. So here we have these streaks of color, and we're going to change the black one to a blue. We're going to just find a nice blue color that we want to use. Yeah, something like that. Something like that. And that's basically it. you created the image. And like you can play around with this for ages and ages. I'm gonna play around with it for just a little bit more. Let's skip that. Let's do one more thing actually before we, just to get some darkness in the lower parts there. We're gonna use the geometry nodes, and we're gonna use the pointness factor to add a, just so you guys see what it looks like. We're gonna add a bit of darkness in the recesses here to give a bit more contrast. Let's see. That's going to change into black. And then we're going to get a mix node. To mix these two together. So we have one that is providing darkness, and then we're going to put this blue on top of it. And now it's mixing, so the colors get a bit washed out, but we're going to use multiply instead, which both adds the darkness in the recesses here, and adds the color as well. I'll change the scale a bit, something like that. Details, that's fine. It's fine. Yes, let's render this. So we're going to use denoise, cycles. We're going to use denoise, not in the viewport, that's unnecessary. For color management, we're going to render this in standard. Since we're going to move it into Photoshop, we're going to do the final color correction in Photoshop. So let's use standard. And let's add a high contrast look. High contrast, that means that we should increase the light a bit. Yeah, that looks good. Do I want to change anything here? It's fine, I can do 16 color depth. No compression. We want a high quality file that we to put out here. Yeah, this is fine. So yeah, here is the rendered image, and yeah, it looks fine. It looks fine. Like you can continue doing things with this image for a long time, and since most of it is procedural, you can always go back and change things again. But just to sort of illustrate how to do this, I thought this was enough. And just finally, a little view of how it can work together. So here we have the one that we've been working from, the one that we wanted to make, and here is the very quick version that I did. So here you can see that we have the image in two places, sort of like this one. Yeah, they have a bit more background blur or whatever. But yeah, that's how you can do it. I hope that you have found this short tutorial helpful. I just wanted to show how you might do it. I didn't go into any detail. But yeah, I hope that it helped somebody.